3 years, 2 months, and 17 days. That was the exact count of how long it had been since Jake had last touched water. But today, watching the restless waves of the lake crash against the pier where his dog Luna was trapped, crying desperately, he knew his phobia was about to be tested in the cruelest possible way. Jake Chen had been only 13 when he almost drowned in the same lake that now haunted him. It was a perfect summer day, the kind that should have created happy memories, not nightmares. He had been playing with friends, showing off his new goggles, when he stepped on a slippery rock. In seconds, the world turned upside down. Cold water filled his lungs like liquid ice. He thrashed, arms and legs flailing, but only sank deeper. Colors blurred into green and blue, and for a terrifying moment, Jake accepted he would die there, until strong hands pulled him to the surface. Now, at 16, Jake couldn't even take a shower without his hands shaking. Public pools were forbidden territory. Heavy rain made him break out in a cold sweat. And that lake had become the symbol of everything he feared. Luna wasn't technically his dog. The golden retriever had appeared at the Chen house 6 months earlier, skinny and scared, and simply decided to stay. Jake tried to resist her charm. Dogs meant work, and he already had enough problems. But Luna had other plans. She slept beside his bed every night, placing her heavy head on his chest when nightmares about water woke him. She followed him to the bus stop and waited when he came back from school. Luna became his emotional anchor, the only thing that made him feel brave again. That's why, on that Saturday morning, when Luna slipped through the open door and ran straight toward the lake, Jake didn't hesitate to follow. At least, not at first. "Luna, come back!" Jake shouted, running down the familiar trail. His breathing was already unsteady. Just being near that place made his heart race. Then he saw her. Luna was at the end of a half-broken wooden pier, about 20 meters from the shore. She had probably chased something, maybe a squirrel, and now was trapped. One of the planks had given way under her weight, leaving her hind legs hanging above the dark water. "Somebody! Please, somebody help me!" Jake shouted, but it was too early in the morning. The lake was deserted. Luna looked at him with those golden eyes full of trust, as if to say, "You'll save me, won't you?" Jake stepped closer to the water's edge, and immediately his legs gave out. Memories rushed in like a tide, sinking, lungs filling, the absolute panic of not being able to breathe. His hands shook violently. "I can't," he whispered. "Luna, I'm sorry, but I can't." Luna barked once, low and desperate, and Jake's heart cracked. He pulled out his phone with trembling hands. No signal. The lake was too remote. He scanned the shore for branches, ropes, anything to reach her without entering the water. But there was nothing. The pier was too far, and Luna was at its very end. Then Jake noticed something that made his blood run cold. Luna was trembling, not from fear, but from cold. Even in summer, the water here was icy, and she had been partially submerged for at least 10 minutes. Hypothermia. The word echoed in his head like a funeral bell. "Okay, Luna," he said, voice breaking. "I'll go get help. Just hold on, okay?" But as he turned to run, Luna let out a weak whimper that stopped him in his tracks. When he looked back, her head was sinking dangerously low toward the water. She wouldn't last until he returned. Jake stepped closer again, every movement a battle against his instincts. "You're stronger than this," he muttered, a phrase Luna seemed to understand, because she always licked his face when he said it during nightmares. His boots touched the water's edge. Panic surged. His breathing grew shallow and fast, but Luna whimpered again, eyes half closed now. "No," Jake said firmly. "I'm not losing you too." He pulled off his shoes and socks, then his shirt. The water numbed his feet instantly. He forced one foot in, then the other. Water up to his ankles, legs trembling violently. "You'll die here," a voice in his head screamed. Just like last time, But then Luna looked at him, and in those golden eyes he saw something unexpected. Not fear, not desperation, but pride, as if she knew exactly what he was doing and believed in him completely. "For you," Jake whispered, and stepped deeper. Water to his knees. He was hyperventilating, but he kept moving. Each step was a victory over 3 years of paralyzing terror. Water to his waist. His hands were purple from cold and fear, but he held them above the surface, pushing forward slowly. Then his feet lost the bottom. For one terrible moment, he froze, floating in the dark water. Memories slammed him, sinking, drowning, death. But then Luna barked faintly, and he remembered why he was here. Jake began to swim. Clumsy, desperate strokes, but functional. With every pull, he repeated like a mantra, "For Luna, for Luna, for Luna." When he finally reached the pier, his hands shook so badly he could barely grip the wet wood. Luna was weaker now, her eyes almost closed. "Hey, girl," Jake said softly, pulling himself out of the water. "I'm here." Freeing her was harder than he expected. Her paw was wedged between 2 planks, and she was too weak to help. Jake had to break part of the rotten wood with his own hands, ignoring the splinters digging into his skin. Finally, Luna was free. But another problem loomed. How could he carry a 30-kilo dog, freezing and exhausted, back to shore? The answer came instinctively. Jake slid back into the water, positioned Luna across his back, and began swimming toward the shore. Every stroke was a battle against the extra weight and his own exhaustion. But he didn't stop. When he finally dragged Luna onto dry ground, both of them were shaking uncontrollably. He wrapped her in his shirt and ran home with her in his arms, where his parents rushed them both to the vet. Luna fully recovered in 2 days. Jake, on the other hand, needed more time to process what had happened. 3 days later, he returned to the lake, alone this time. He stood at the water's edge for almost an hour, just watching the small waves lap at the sand. Then, for the first time in 3 years, 2 months, and 20 days, Jake chose to step into the water. Not out of necessity, not out of desperation, but because he wanted to. The water was still cold, his heart still raced, but the paralyzing panic was gone, replaced by something he had forgotten he possessed: courage. 6 months later, Jake became a volunteer swimming instructor for children at the community pool. He specialized in helping kids who, like him, had developed a fear of water. Fear never disappears completely, he always told his students. But you can learn to be braver than your fear. Luna, fully recovered and more mischievous than ever, often accompanied him to classes. She seemed to know she had a special role as co-therapist, offering comforting licks to nervous children. And every time Jake watched a child take their first brave dive, he remembered that sometimes the most unlikely heroes and the most personal dragons lead us exactly where we need to be. 3 years, 2 months, and 20 days. That had been the length of Jake's fear. But his courage? That would last forever.